Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast. We're just heading into the championship season here. Myself and Shane Brophy, head of sport at Benina Guardian. We're here to preview it. It's a big weekend obviously with the Munster Championship thrown in, with the Leinster Championship thrown in. But sure, look, there's nowhere else we can start, only with Tipperary this weekend against Clare, heading down to the belly of the beast. Are you excited for this one, Shane, after what Tip supporters went through last year?
I'm sort of... It's hard to know. I think it's very low key down here. I know you're up in Dublin. It's very, very low key. Even though Tip had a good league, I still think a lot of people are still uncertain about what to expect. And because we know, look, league is league and championship is championship, and as well as we did in the league, and then the steps forward we made. The ultimate test starts this Sunday, and it's huge test going down to Clare. But as I think as Liam Cahill and Noel McGrath said, at the Munster Championship launch, like these are the challenges and the tests that you play inter-county hurling for, going to grounds like Ennis first round of the championship, and have been seriously tested. So I'm looking forward to seeing, I suppose, how Tip stand up to the challenge. And I say for everything we've learned of Tip so far this year, we'll know an awful lot more come Sunday evening.
Yeah, but Tip are back, so I don't know. Why wouldn't people get excited? You know, it's the 59th championship meeting between the two counties. How many have Clare won?
Oh, it's about 15 or 16, isn't it? It's
15, yeah.
Yeah. No, I saw that figure earlier in the week. So,
of the last four meetings, it's been kind of 50-50. And you know, last year Clare came to Thurles, they won. Tipperary were disjointed. The team was, you know, the half back line was pulled too far up the field. It was just a disjointed performance. The year before that, Tipperary had a nice 4-point win in the Munster semi-final. Go back then to 2019.
Don't mention the penalty.
Yeah, look, that penalty, there was no problem with the penalty. I know, joking aside though, 2019, the last time Tipperary were down in Ennis, 321 to 17 points. Do you know, it was a bit of a massacre that day.
Yeah.
Tipperary walked all over Clare. So it's not like, you know, like Tipperary would be a little bit kind of weary after what happened last year.
Yeah.
But last time Tipperary were down in Ennis, Tip had their way.
They did, but I think 2019 we went down there with a very experienced group of players, at the Brendan Mahers, the Callanans, like all at the peak of their power. Bonner Maher, I think, had his best ever game for Tip that day. He was outstanding, and like we will still have the same level of experience going down. Well, a decent level with Ford and Ronan Maher and Barrett and all those guys. But I do think Clare are a different animal now. I think I'd have Clare as favourites for this weekend, and I do think Clare probably are under greater pressure to get the win this weekend. It's me throwing it at Clare, like it's their home game. They have Limerick the following Saturday night, and if they don't win, potentially they're staring at a 0-2 start in the Munster Championship. So I think, but on the flip side, on the other side, I think Clare have shown very, very little in the league this year. I think it's championship or bust for Clare. I think Brian Lohan knows that. He's in year 4. I think they've really got to do something this year, whether they win a Munster Championship or get to an All-Ireland, I think. And they have, looking at their squad, there's rumours of Mark Rodgers, I think, and Rory Hayes.
Yeah, just seemed to stop there for a second. But I think it's 2 wins for Clare during the league, 2 losses and a draw. So, you know, they've been okay, but they haven't been blowing us away. And I think it was just the manner of that defeat against Limerick when they got a couple of scores in garbage time at the end. It was 127 to 218 for a finish. Surely that kind of shows that there's, you know, to some degree, when you add it into what happened in the All-Ireland semi-final last year, there's either some level of frailty or the reliance on John Conlon, for example, who had to pull out last year for the All-Ireland semi-final. I mean, that doesn't explain getting completely capitulating against Kilkenny. There's other issues there too.
They do have a flaw. There's no doubt about it. They are I suppose the best way to describe them, they're a team that can throw in a stinker when you least expect it. Like we saw in the All Ireland semi final. They just, I don't know, it's for a talented team that had the capability of throwing in a wobbler when you least expect it. Like so, but then they do have the capability, like we saw against Limerick last year in the Munster final when they're on it. Okay, they lost the game in extra time, but when they're on it, they're very, very good. And like that's the thing has me very, very wary for next Sunday is that what are we going to get? Are we going to get the very, very good Clare who are seriously good, or will we get the mediocre Clare, which gives us a great chance of winning? So I suppose I think they're going in with as many questions to answer as we do because, okay, you mentioned the Limerick game in the league, but yes, the next game, I know I mentioned it before about Wexford, and Wexford were awful that day, but Clare went down to Wexford Park absolutely stung after the Limerick, and they absolutely destroyed Wexford. Like they went for them for a shortcut. So that if they're on it, we could be in for a tough afternoon on Sunday. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, well, like to me, it's a puck of a ball game between Tip and Clare this Sunday. But like I also look at what we saw in that league game at Cusack Park when Clare went 8-1 ahead on Galway after 14 minutes and ended up losing the game by 5 points. You know, they were really very much on the back foot for the entirety of the rest of the game. Really, I'm wondering which players have really stood out from this year. At times, David Fitzgerald, and he's going to be suspended. Aidan McCarthy, he's only back from injury, but he's been one of their leading players, especially in that game against Limerick. He really stood up. David Reedy's looked good at times. Ian Galvin. Tony Kelly's been pretty quiet from play.
It looks like they've been sparing him. Like, did he had that ankle up, or he didn't he have an operation or something after?
I think that was the year before.
Oh, that was the year before. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. But like they're very reliant on Tony Kelly hitting top form, Shane O'Donnell, who we haven't seen at all, hitting top form, John Conlon lording it at centre back. Like John Conlon won't have all the room in the world like he did last year to solo up through the Tipperary defence and take a shot. You know, take a shot inside the 21 after soloing up from the like that's just not going to happen.
No. Well, you like to think it won't anyway, but you like to think Tip would be better organised this year, better tuned in. Like so, it's like they still have like I think a key part of their game is like in terms of Tip's game plan is who will play at wing forward and Diarmuid Ryan to stop him getting up the field. Okay, Diarmuid Ryan's still going to get up the field and he's probably going to score 2 or 3 points, but if he is going to do that, we've got to put somebody on him that's going to give him a problem going the other way. Like I wouldn't put a stopper on Diarmuid Ryan. I think he maybe accept he's going to get a point or two, but I think you need to put a scorer on him to say, okay, give Diarmuid a problem of having to worry maybe about maybe a Conor Bowe or somebody, or Garrod O'Connor putting 3 or 4 points and playing the wing on him. Like I think maybe that could be the spot for where Garrod O'Connor goes on Sunday.
Yeah, should we bring up the tactics board here and have a look at some of the potential matchups this Sunday? I mean, we've kind of only partly filled out the Clare team and for the most part, we've gone with the league final team for Tipperary with the exception of putting Cathal Barrett in there. Now, Cathal Barrett may play closer to goal. It depends on the matchup, and maybe he'd suit Mark and Aidan McCarthy. Or maybe they'll go with Breen on whether it's Mark Rogers. We're not entirely sure. Is he fit? Is it going to be Peter Duggan, who, of course, caused so much trouble for Tipperary last year? But let's say it's Brian O'Mara and Michael Breen back there. You're not going to be overly worried about long, high ball going in on the full back line for Tipperary the way you were last year. It just seemed that bit disorganised. And you're not going to be too worried about, like, no matter what ball goes in there, if it's Barrett, Breen, Brian O'Mara, you do feel like Tipperary are a bit better equipped athletically back there.
Oh yeah, no, I think so. I definitely do think I was going through what I think I think Barrett will play and he'll definitely stay close to goal, and because like you need an experienced player beside Michael Breen. Okay, Breen has been there for the guts of a decade, but it's a new position for him in the full back line essentially, like at this level. So I think Barrett will be there. I think Johnny Ryan will probably start, because I think just with probably some of those inside Clare forward, their lower centre of gravity, they're not physically the biggest, so Johnny Ryan probably wouldn't be as exposed there. Maybe if Tip were playing against a Limerick or a Waterford, I probably would have gone maybe towards Owen Connolly, maybe just for a bit of extra size. But I think Johnny Ryan has done. He's been very solid in the league so far. I think he would play at 4, and maybe I don't know whether it depends on what Clare do. Clare will probably bring out a corner forward and get him to drift. But like Johnny Ryan is very comfortable playing in the half-back line and even up as far as midfield. So I think he could get a bit of a roving role. But I think Brian O'Mara will be at 6 and Ron O'Mara will be at 7. I think they'll go with that as the way they played against Limerick. The one for me, the position I'm not sure of is number 5. I know Dan McCormick played there. In the semi-final was solid enough, but I think they have options. I think Enda Heffernan, I thought, had a very, very good league, so he's another one if they want to go for extra physicality. Like they were very sweet on Brian McGrath earlier in the year before he had those couple of hamstring problems. Like we don't know what's been happening the last 4 weeks. Like if Brian McGrath's come back into form and good fitness, I would think they might lean towards him because he's like his vision and his use of the ball would be excellent. And in that cauldron atmosphere, a guy that's cool, calm, and collected on the ball is essential. Like, but if he's not firing, you'd probably they'll probably go with Dan McCormick because of what you're going to get in an atmosphere like that. So probably still the favourite for me to start at number 5.
River Power says Peter Duggan, Shane O'Donnell, Aidan McCarthy, big aerial threats there. Dealing with them is key to Tip's defensive performance. I think also dealing with speed. I mean, Aidan McCarthy's been mentioned there, but he's a serious
stopping the quality of ball going into them too. Like it's take hard work out the field. Like so.
Yeah, and McCarthy can play anywhere really. Probably from 6 upwards. Well, 5 or 6 upwards. So stopping him running with the ball, making sure Tony Kelly is tied down. I mean, if you can, or certainly damage limitation. Last year, Seamus Kennedy did a great job on him. Yeah. Kennedy's obviously been named wing forward for the most part this year. Is Seamus Kennedy going to be told, right, you're named wing forward, but keep an eye on Tony Kelly at all times? Unless, and like to be fair, whether Tony Kelly is foraging in his own half or if he goes up full forward, Seamus Kennedy's the experience to play in any of those positions.
He does, yeah, but I think if I don't know if they'll go down the man marking route again, because if like, who's going to play wing forward then? If I think you need somebody like say a 10 and 12 who's going to run that wing rather than being told to run all over the place. I don't know. I'm not convinced. Like I don't think any Liam Cahill team I've noticed so far have gone down the man marking route. Like so, I know it's a risky strategy.
Last year, but he's kind of done it before with Watford. Should you remember Calum Lyons a couple of years ago in the Munster Championship in Thurles? Calum Lyons was in full back, man marking Tony Kelly, who everyone expected to be further.
I think Clare won that game, didn't they? He took Lyons out of where it was actually more impactful. Like so.
But the point I'm making is that it showed that Liam Cahill is prepared to do a man-marking job on Kelly, and I think you have to. You can't let him just forage.
Yeah, it's. I suppose he knows he can do it. Like it'll be interesting to see whether he goes down that road. Like I suppose, he has the option to do it if he needs to. I suppose in terms of what we're trying to, in terms of a shape, like we know Kennedy is going to play. I suppose that's in terms of the starting 15. We think think it's fairly acceptable. He's going to play like so.
In terms of like Liam Cahill's last trip here, it was basically the game that brought down the curtain on his Waterford career. A fair, mother and father of a beating down in Ennis last year. It was the manner of it. It looked like, the players had down tools. Maybe I'm being harsh. They had plenty of injuries and all that. But from the outside looking in, it looked like a team that had kind of given up the ghost. And, to some degree, you can kind of understand it. Like the players going in probably feeling like they're a beaten docket. But he'll want to put that right.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Well, I think I'd say that'll be far from his mind of thinking the last time I was down here that Clare did this to one of my teams. I could just think that was just the circumstances last year that Waterford, even though they could have still qualified if they got a win, but I suppose the manner of it was more. I think it was more a reflection on the players personally down that anything else that like the down tools but there's no doubt about I mentioned in my preview that I hate this term must win, and I'm hearing a lot of that it's a must win game and that's something I asked Liam Cahill. All right, we asked Tommy last week, didn't we? Tommy Dunn, that the balancing act between going down there and doing your best to win, but not throwing all your eggs in one basket, because you still have 3 other matches to come where you have 6 points to play for. Like, so, and like, there's no doubt about it. Like, Tip have to find probably one win on the road somewhere, either in Clare or Cork. And look, if they get it on Sunday, it's a great start to the championship. But there's no doubt, like, if Tip win on Sunday, I think the whole momentum gets in behind. The fans will be on board. So I think it's in terms of, from that point of view, a win would be so important, and so would be huge for this team.
Yeah, well, like, if you look at the team that Tipperary played against Limerick, some of the experienced players are in there, and ultimately I think some of the more experienced players found the going a little bit more difficult. And I'm going to include, like, Noel McGrath, brilliant and all as he is, and Bonner Maher in that. They both found it very difficult to get into the game. And if you're to look at Clare's intensity, fair enough, it was a dead rubber game for Limerick last year in the round robin, and then in the Munster final, they've shown that they can have a serious level of intensity on a big day.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm wondering, are we going to see Conor Bowe and Mark Keogh maybe starting? Let's go full energy. And fair enough, Noel McGrath is captain, but maybe for this particular game, we might introduce you, and Bonner, we might introduce you, because maybe that power will start to tell in the last 15 minutes rather than in the earlier stages of a game.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's what I was trying to try and line up the forwards in terms of what he might be thinking of doing, because, like, one thing Liam Cahill and the management are not short of in the forwards is options. Like, they can go, I think they can go horses for courses with different games. I know it's probably a phrase I've been using it probably a bit too much lately. I'm probably, just from looking for that line, I think 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 will be the same. But I do think Noel McGrath, I'd love to see Noel nearly play as a third midfielder. I think we would get so much more out of Noel McGrath if he's looking forward as much as he can, if he's on the ball. Like, I just think he can survey the play and pick out a pass, if you know what I mean. Like, so, I think O'Connor and Kennedy. The inside line, I think Morris and Jason Ford are nailed on. The final play one is interesting.
Morris will drift, though, won't he?
He probably will drift, yeah. I did no doubt he'll start. The final one is who'll wear 14 now. Horses for courses in a game like that, in an atmosphere like that, I'd be leaning towards either Bonner Maher or John McGrath, just with their experience, and maybe I'd hold Bowe and Keogh. I'll
tell you why I wouldn't. The last couple of years now, John McGrath had a very difficult game here a couple of years ago. Paul Flanagan, I think that might have been in Limerick, but he really did give him his fill of it that day. I think we need full all-out energy here, and, like, I know there's experience and all that, but I'd be starting Mark Keogh.
Yeah, like, he's had a good league, but it's, I don't know. He just still hasn't convinced me yet. Like, so,
which of the two?
Mark Keogh. Still, I don't. I'd have probably Bowe probably ahead of him, like, in the pecking order. Like, so.
I think Keogh can be hit and miss within games. He could have 4 points scored, and you'd be like, he hasn't really been in it at the same time. But, like, he's the future of that Tip inside line.
He is, but, like, it's all going to be down to what, I suppose, the management will have seen the last 4 weeks in training. Like, I'd say ultimately who gets the number 14 jersey is who's been burning it up for the last 4 weeks. Like, it could have been McGrath, it could have been Bonner, it could have been Keogh or Bowe or Shawnee Ryan. Like, I suppose it all depends on, do they want a rough and tumble guy on Conor Cleary, or do they want somebody that's going to expose him? Like, so, while Cleary's been very good for Clare, I don't think an awful lot of teams have gone after him, if you know what I mean. Because, like, he probably is a centre back playing 3, is he more? That's how I always looked at Conor Cleary.
Yeah, and, like, he is a good player, and he's had some good games against Tipperary as well. Look, I'd be inclined to start Keogh inside and just give him that chance, because I think he probably hasn't had enough chances in the last couple of years. I think this game, wide open.
I suppose he did get goal chances against Clare last year, but I thought his finishing was very untidy. Like, he's got to, I suppose he does try to maybe take the extra step or two before getting the perfect shot away. I think there's no doubt he can finish, but I just think when the chance presents itself, just take it. Don't overthink it.
Yeah, and if you go back to last year in the first round of the Munster Championship, Conor Bowe started against Waterford, and only for he broke his finger. He was having a very good game in the first half, and, like, I mean, lads who are, what is he, 6'2", 6'3", big tank of a man. He's able to catch the ball. He's able to hurl. I mean, why not have him out there? I know he obviously seems to have been used more as a sub throughout this year, so maybe they're not totally setting him just yet. But for my money, I don't want to see Tipperary losing it in the legs in against a strong team, because like, bring those subs off the bench for the last 25, 30 minutes, because when you're on the road 12 or 13 years, that's when you're just not going to have the same legs, but you really can be smarter and start to pick the game apart.
Just you're talking about Bonner-Maher, like, what's best? Do you get 40 of him starting or 30 off the bench? Which is better? Like, so I always think you get the 40 or 45 or 50 out of him, and then have the young buck coming off the bench, maybe finish it off. That's always been my thinking of a player like that. Like, so particularly because the first 35, 40 minutes, or particularly the first half, is going to be dog eat dog, and I just think, okay, with that, I suppose our last sighting of Bonner-Maher, he wasn't great against Limerick, but then the game before that, or against Waterford, he was excellent at full forward. Like, so, yeah, it'll be. I think there's arguments looking at it both ways of who to start and who doesn't start in that forward. I think we can fairly well nail down 5 of the 6 forwards. It's that final one. I think it definitely is up for grabs.
Yeah, how crucial is it to pick up points here? I think Tipperary, if they're going to be getting through this, need to pick up at least a point.
Probably, yeah. Look, I definitely got to beat either Cork or Clare. I think there's no, because like, look, on all known form, trying to beat Limerick at home in round 3 or third game is going to be extremely tough. Like, so you've got to be picking up an away win somewhere. Personally, I think our best chance would be possibly in Cork. There's just something about me. I'm wary of this Clare team. Like, they've been so quiet this year. They haven't put their best 15 out. It looks like they've been Colden, Kelly, and O'Donnell in kid gloves. Okay, they're down Davy Fitzgerald. Rumors about a couple of other injured guys. Like, so, but I just think Clare know this is a bigger game for them, because they know if they lose and they have to go to Limerick 6 days later, and they're possibly staring a 0-2 start. Like, I think it's a way bigger game for Clare this weekend than it is for Tip.
But like, Tip went through last year without a victory.
Oh, I know that, but I don't think Liam Cahill can. That's not something you can throw on Liam Cahill, like, so.
No, of course not. But like, I think for Tipperary, for confidence moving forward, like,
but that's the thing I was mentioning about Tommy last week, is that, like, what if Liam Cahill go, like, we have to win this game, and then suddenly we go down there and do everything, lose by a point or two, and suddenly we're crestfallen and you can't pick it up for the rest of the championship. I think you've got to be so careful in how you sell this game in terms of the importance of it.
But like, you don't go into any game doing anything except giving it everything to win.
Yeah, I not. But we saw exactly what point I'm making is what Clare did in the Munster final last year. They threw everything into that game, and their year was over after that. That's the danger. Like, so.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't really buy that, but I get it. But
they were psychologically against Wexford, they were terrible, and against Kilkenny, they were terrible. It looked to me like they threw everything in that Munster final, and psychologically they were gone after that.
I'd say more physically they were gone.
I think much of it is mental, I think.
Yeah, but I think, like, within the camp, right? I think Tipperary will be looking to win an All-Ireland this year, right? You and I don't necessarily think that will happen. I think Tipperary are just they're among the chasing peloton. If Limerick
you have to aim for something. Aiming for top 3 is not an aim. You have to target something solid.
So if you're aiming to win an All-Ireland this year, which all the top teams are, even though we all know Limerick are massive favourites, you've got to be going out bald-headed to win this game. I think Tip are bald-headed.
I think they will. I don't know doubt about it, yeah.
I think absolutely Everton will go into this. Yeah. And I actually think it's going to be a puck of a ball, but I think Tipperary will win this game. So if we were to get your prediction.
I think I fancy Clare. I don't know. There's just something about them. They're very quiet. But they have, as I said at the start, they have the potential maybe to struggle. I just think first game at home with Clare, They're going to have huge home advantage, big crowd. Like the ticket sales in Tip are not hectic, and you just like I mentioned it in my preview. I think the Tip supporters have got to find a way to get down there. Like, if you think 20 minutes into the second half and it's still tight, and the players in the field can hear the Tip fans just getting louder and louder now, and we saw it again. Anytime Limerick are in trouble, and any small bit of difficulty, their fans that it does help us. It does that 1 or 2% can the players on the field can hear it, and maybe might drive them on. So like anybody who's still maybe sitting on the fence and maybe wondering, am I going to pay go €12 to watch it on the telly or go down to Ennis? Maybe get in your car and go down to Ennis.
I feel like we're following a similar pattern as we've been all year. So like from the start of the year, I was like, Tip are going to get out of Munster, from the get-go.
Yeah.
And then slowly you were sort of coming on board. Now I'm saying I think Tip are going to win on Sunday. We'll be here this time next week. Tip will have won.
I'd love to have some of your confidence. I think we can win, but I'm not overly confident that we will. That's all.
But like my confidence is based on Tipperary are now playing hurling that suits them. They're using the ball, they're driving through the lines, they're creating goal chances game after game after game. And that's not me not recognising the qualities that Clare bring to this game, because they really do. But I just think that if you put the two teams side by side, and Tip are missing a lot of players this year, and you were to sort of rate them all out of 10, and I mean, obviously I haven't done it beforehand, but I suspect that I would sort of slightly lean towards Tipperary, which is why I'm thinking puck of a ball, Tip will win.
The one thing I still have to see from this Tip team is, do they have a swagger about them to go down there to Ennis, bullheaded, fully focused, a bit of an arrogance about them, and go down there and do a job and win the game. I'm not, the way that when Clare go in and play Limerick, and Limerick are good, but Clare have sort of aura when they play Limerick. As good as Limerick are, we don't fear them in the slightest. This is where I'm not sure Tip have that yet, but I know Liam Cahill as a manager has that ability in him. We saw it at underage of getting teams to believe completely that we are good enough to go down there and get a result against any team. So maybe over the last 4 or 5 weeks since the end of the league, that's one element maybe that he'll have been drilling into the team. That look, this is a monumental challenge, but as I said earlier on, if we win, the benefits of it and the confidence and momentum Tip will get if they were able to win on Sunday would be incredible.
Yeah, River Power says performance is key. Performance against Clare last year was so bad, full of mistakes. Clare took the confidence from the win and ran with it. Hurling 1, 2, 3, 4. Limerick play a pure blanket defence. Hegarty picking up the ball in his own 21. That's why Bonamara and Morris had no space against Limerick. Saw them up close in NI National League final. Who's reffing it? Do you know off the top of your head?
Waterford.
Thomas Walsh from Waterford, yeah. If Tip win on ball on Clare's half back line, Clare are in trouble. Yeah, look, I'll tell you, I am really looking forward to this game because I think there's going to be skin and hair flying.
Yeah, I suppose, I was just on one of the other podcasts, and it's been lined up as the game of the weekend, but I suppose it's the one game that's not been shown on TV. And you can probably understand it, but Limerick are the All-Ireland champions. And I suppose, look, if Waterford, and just to move on to the other game, if Waterford had a full strength team out, you give them a chance, but it looks like Gleeson and a few guys are going to be missing, and you just wonder if this was a game that mattered. Do you think Waterford will go bullheaded for it? But maybe Davies thinking, look, the Waterford's championship will depend on how they go in the other 3 matches, really. So, and maybe that Gleeson and anybody with a niggle is going to be saved for the Cork match the following Sunday.
Yeah, and that's depressing to think that teams would almost like phone it in against one opposition because they're so strong.
But that's what you have to be. Well, you probably have to be smart about it too. You just think if we get to round 3 and Tip are in a good place, and 7 days after you play Limerick, you have the key game with Waterford. If anybody with a niggle, would you hold them back against Limerick? You probably would. Yeah,
I suppose you kind of have to see what the injuries are like, and how many players it is,
and the situation you're in, so.
Yeah, Tip will have 2 wins on the board by then, though.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, well, I actually think that will be the case. Not that I'd ever be accused of being overly confident, you know.
So we're both tipping Limerick in the first game in this.
How do you not really?
Yeah.
Because I mean, their most recent games, like just go back to 2019, which is the Munster round robin, 224 to 10 points. That was down in Walsh Park, so that was the mother and father of a baton. Munster final then a year later. Obviously, this is Liam Cahill's doing 25 points to 21. Limerick won that game. All-Ireland final, 11 points in it. Then the All-Ireland semi-final a year later, I think that was 11 points again. So, I mean, Waterford have been coming up quite short. Last year wasn't too bad, 30 points to 221. But to be fair, they scored 2 goals and you know, obviously we're due them, but like it was 30 scores to 23. So they're still a nice bit off them. There's a huge gap between the two of them.
Yeah, and like they're down a few bodies, some injury, and they're Kieran Bennett's not there. Philip Mahoney's retired, so or Pádraig Mahoney's. So like to be fair, as I said last week with Tommy, it'd be interesting to see does Davy throw something different at it against Limerick. Because he loves being the coach.
What does he have though?
But in terms of a tactical play or something, it'd be just it's like Frank Lampard last night playing on N'Golo Kante up front. You just don't know what. Davy could pull some trick out of that. You'd be if he plays Desi Hutchinson again midfield, I'd be surprised. Like so, but then he could play in there completely throwing Cork off and knowing that Desi will be back in full forward line against Cork.
Well, look, if that was the plan all along, just it was all a ruse to play Desi in the inside forward line. To be honest, is it going to catch Limerick off guard if Desi plays? No,
they're probably
and like. If Desi plays well on Sean Finn, who will inevitably be picking him up, assuming both men are fit, and does well, that is in line with what we've seen in the last game or two anyway. So unless he goes up and scores 3-5, I don't know if it's like a ruse that somehow worked because Desi got a few scores. Like last year was, as we said, Limerick were well in charge in that game. And what did Desi score from play? Once, or was it 5 points from play or something like that?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he was brilliant. Watford were terrible last year, and he still got nominated for an All-Star. That'll tell you how good he can be, no matter what the circumstances. Watford haven't beaten Limerick in the Championship since when?
They wouldn't have played an awful lot before the round robin. Jesus, I don't know.
It was 2011. Do you remember that game when I think John Milan was brilliant in the same game? It ended up 3-14 to 3-15. Yeah, he scored a dramatic late goal to send Watford into the Munster final. Yeah. I remember that game. It was a cracker. Pádraig Mahoney scored 7. John Milan scored 2-2. On the other side, Donal O'Grady 3 points. Remember, this was the game where Kevin Downs scored 2-1. Was Brick Walsh full back in that game? I think he might have been. Yeah, I think that might have been the game when he was full back. But so it's a long, long time since Watford have beaten Limerick here. But I don't know. I'm trying to make a case for Watford to do much in this game, but really you're just clutching at straws, aren't you?
Yeah.
And like the last 5 championship games between these two, how many goals have been scored in the last 5 championship games where these teams have met?
I think just the 2 Watford got last year, was it?
Across the last 5 games. So it would be just 5 goals. So there was 1 last year for Limerick, and then the 2019 Munster round robin as well. We'll quickly go through some of the games that are going on in Leinster this weekend. So Antrim against Dublin in Corrigan Park. Now, a couple of years ago when they met in the Leinster Championship in Tailteann Park, Dublin won by 18 points. I remember Michael Verney at the time saying that he thinks there's now a shock on. Actually, were we chatting with Brian Flannery at the time as well?
Yeah.
He was thinking maybe there was a shock on, and I was fairly bullish about Dublin, maybe because Kenny was over the team, but Dublin won that handy. Antrim have been the Joe McDonagh in the meantime. They're back again, had a relatively good league. Do you see any reason to suggest that that like Dublin have lost a lot of players, so this should be quite close.
I think if it looked to me that I was surprised that after the Laois game that Darren Gleeson he rested a few guys against Tip. I thought maybe he would have gone a bit harder at it, but look, I would be surprised if the last 4 or 5 weeks Darren Gleeson hasn't been sewing it into all these lads. That this is a massive opportunity for us here. Like they're underdogs. Dublin will be favourites. I think Dublin have played a couple of times there over the last few years, so it's a familiar ground to them. It's difficult, but they won't be too spooked by it. But if Antrim have their best 15 on the field and are in this game neck and neck early in the second half, I think they have a great shot. I fancy Dublin to sneak it by 3-4 points, but like if Neil McManus, Sean Elliott, Conal Cunningham, if they have games, Keelan Malloy, if they have a game of games, I wouldn't be surprised if Antrim, I think the official first game of the championship, it will get the whole thing going. It's a 2:00 on Saturday that Antrim might. I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled it off.
James McNaughton is another player I like, and Michael Bradley also. I watched these teams play each other twice this year already, in Parnell Park in the Walsh Cup, and then in the league also at Parnell Park. And it took a familiar pattern both times. The first game, none of the Dunloy lads who got to the All-Ireland semi-final. You know what? That might bring a bit of confidence into the camp as well. Those lads knowing, we beat St. Thomas's, who have good Galway County players. But both games had a familiar pattern. Dublin started off well, pulled away a little bit. Antrim came back, reeled them back in, but they were always at arm's length. And I know that the venue is definitely going to add a little something to this, and Dublin have had their injuries. But if Ronan Hayes is fit, if Keane O'Sullivan is fit, if Danny Sutcliffe can improve on his league performances, and if Keane Boland, crucially, can get into the game, I'd still be looking at Dublin winning this by 3-4 here.
I know. I suppose on form you're probably thinking that, but it's a huge opportunity for Antrim. But then if they win this, they probably think, God, if we beat a Westmeath, and potentially maybe you get a smell at maybe you don't. I'd worry for Wexford. I think Wexford could be vulnerable. I would worry for Wexford. I think this weekend against Galway. I think. I know it depends, and I know they've been missing an awful lot of their key defenders. But I think Galway could win this by double digits on Saturday.
Oh, double! Geez, I didn't expect you to say that, but see, the trouble I suppose with Wexford was at times they were missing 10 and 11 players, and maybe they weren't the only ones. Like, look, Cork were down loads of players, Tip were down plenty of players. We've seen that kind of across the board. When did Wexford last beat Galway in the championship? I'm putting you on the spot lovely today.
Probably the 96 All-Ireland semi-final, was it?
Yeah, and you have the arms up there sort of arrogantly,
No, I was as I was thinking, they wouldn't have played, and sure, it was a Leinster final there, and Galway won the couple of matches in Wexford Park, between 2017 and this past season, the only year they haven't played actually is 2021, so they've become familiar foes in recent times. But Galway have tended to be relatively on top if they haven't been draws. Actually, 2 of the last 3 games have been draws. And in the odd time, actually, just looking over those results, Galway tend to, pull away and win by a nice bit. Like, have you liked what you've seen from Galway this year? Like, some of these newer players that are going to replace Davy Burke, and coming to mind is maybe Ronan Glennon. He'll get more of a role. Maybe Sean Lennon, Kevin Cooney in the forwards. There's 1 or 2 others as well. Tom Monaghan really established himself last year. Yeah, I think for me, I think Galway. I put Galway in the same bracket as Clare in terms of what we saw from them during the league, which wasn't an awful lot. I thought they were very passive against Limerick in Pearse Stadium, and I thought they gave them too much respect. But when they had a go at them late on, to give them a bit of trouble. I thought against Clare, Jesus, they looked dreadful in the first 15-20 minutes. But I was really impressed with how they took control of that game after that. And I thought they were physically just bullied Clare out of it for the rest of the game. I thought that was the one thing that said to me that, God, there's a bit of steel in this Galway team. Maybe it's a team that doesn't have the flair you would associate with maybe the Joe Canning types of guys, but there's a bit of substance about these guys. Like, there's Canning or Shefflin is probably, he's in his second year. He knows more about these players now, and maybe the guys that he can rely on maybe in pressurized situations. Davy Burke is going to be a big loss. There's no doubt about it. But I suppose Joe Canning, it feels like it's a new team now without Burke and Canning, if you know what I mean. I said double. I think somewhere between 5 and 10 will be the winning margin. I do think Galway will win this one comfortably enough.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, like there are some of the heads that we've seen for years
Yeah.
and years. There, Connor Cooney, maybe Jason Flynn, Park
Joseph,
Mannion,
Joseph Cooney.
Joseph Cooney, and a lot of these players were at their best maybe
Yeah.
2017, 2018. So they'll have to, can we see that sort of form again here? And then,
You'd
like
like to see,
Colin Mannion.
they want to see Ronan Bennett taking over the team, like Evan Nyland, really. I'm not sold on Nyland yet. I think he's lack of size, definitely in the way modern hurling is going. Like is it mainly the freeze? He's there for the moment. I don't want to throw that
Connor
at him.
Cooney can take them, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was interesting when they played last year. Remember, Galway were 6 points ahead with less than 10 minutes to go. Lee Chin, he'd been carrying that injury. He came off the bench, and remember, Connor Cooney had the free to just seal it in injury time, and then he was called for time wasting. But like when you look back at it, there's no way he time wasted. And then Lee Chin actually levelled with a free just after that as well. So I'd say Galway won't be lacking motivation in this one.
Well, it was one thing I remember from that match. It was a god awful match. So it was.
Yeah. And do you know what? Is it just me, or are Galway Wexford games often dour enough?
Yeah, they seem to be very tactical, don't they?
Yeah, and Wexford, they've only won
the
one
league match on
telly.
I remember watching the league match on telly earlier in the year. It wasn't great either, like so.
But Charlie McGuckin, I think, can have a huge season. He really impressed me in the between the Walsh Cup and some of the league games I saw. But Wexford lost all bar one game, and that was against Westmeath. So they really haven't been pulling up trees at all this year. Kilkenny against Westmeath. I mean, look, we know Kilkenny are going to win this game.
Yeah.
Like, we can try and build it up all we like, but a little bit dispiriting, I would have said, the manner in which they lost that league final against Limerick, and more or less the tents were folded up for the last 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah, and I suppose I think that's the worrying thing for me, though, for Westmeath. You think there's going to be a response out of Kilkenny. I know, look, playing Limerick and Westmeath is chalk and cheese, but there's going to be a bit of fire. Okay, the under-20s won't be there, Billy. Westmeath will be spared Billy Drennan, but I'd say TJ Reid will probably be told that your holiday is over now. I know it's Westmeath, but we need to start getting you up to speed. And this is the ideal game to get you in. So, Westmeath or Kilkenny probably comfortably somewhere between 10 and 15. So, like, I suppose the one thing about the tweak they've made to the regulations, which is great, is that remember last year when Kilkenny and Westmeath was competitive enough for 15 minutes, and then Kilkenny ran up the score late on for the score difference, that they've gotten rid of that. If there's a tiebreaker, that instead of running up the score against the weaker teams, that if three teams are tied, it's the scores against each other rather than Westmeath or Antrim being brought into it. So it's like it serves no, but it served no Westmeath no good last year. Like, they were so competitive for so long, and then there were 6 points up, it's down but 10 minutes to go, and I think they lost by 16 or 19 till Kenny just ran up the score, like so.
Yeah, and like if you look at some of the other games that Westmeath played last year, I think they were give or take level against Dublin after an hour, and Dublin pulled away.
Yeah.
And they obviously drew with Wexford as well. So like you'd be hoping that they can have a strong season here. And like 7 years ago when Westmeath under-21s beat Kilkenny under-21s, a lot of the same players, like the likes of Killian Doyle, Niall Mitchell, they played on one side. On the other side, Hugh Lawler, Conor Delaney, there was Paddy Deegan. Who?
John Donnelly.
Yeah, I can't even remember if he was playing. I checked the team sheet the other day, and there was a nice few. So like
Billy Ryan, I think was one.
Billy Ryan was another one.
Yeah.
So I mean, manager Joe Fortune can look at it and say, "Hey, come on now, look, lad, we've done this against them before." Derek Ling is the only man in Leinster who's going to be standing on the line for his first senior championship match as an intercounty manager.
Yeah.
So I mean, you still expect him to win, but it's going to be an interesting and I suppose proud occasion for him.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, I know it'll be. I do expect a sort of a bit of a bounce back from Kilkenny this weekend, just in terms of a bit more of an edge. Yeah, I was surprised how flat they were against Limerick. Okay, Limerick maybe make it look bad, but there was one thing you think wouldn't get exposed like that against Limerick would be Kilkenny, and they were quite badly.
Yeah, and it's over 9,000 days since Kilkenny last had a championship win under anybody other than Brian Cody. So, that'll probably be put right this weekend. What about the Tipperary under-20s facing Limerick this Friday? I'd say Brendan Cummins will be geared up big time to try and get a victory here.
Yeah, no, look, they know it's I suppose that Clare are playing Cork tonight, so they definitely know what they have to do. Look, they're going out to win on Friday. I suppose there's no doubt about it. But I think if one of the results, I don't know what I think. If Clare are beaten tonight, a draw on Friday would be enough to keep them involved going into the following week against Waterford. So at least they'll know what they have to do. Because unlike last night when Tip, the minor match will probably come to it later when they had the last gas free and they stuck it over, hoping to come back for the winning. But yeah, look, I think there's no doubt about it. Like Tip have to win. They've had good patches against Clare and against Cork, but haven't put a 60-minute performance in. Look, we know how good this Limerick team will be. I assume Adam English and Shane O'Brien will probably be lining out. I don't expect they'll be playing on Sunday. But I thought that regulation is very strange that Adam Hogan is not named for. Look, we know he's going to start on Sunday, but he's not named for tonight. Like that. Well, it's a strange one. Like I think that regulation needs to be changed. There's no doubt about it. It doesn't sit well with me. But back to the Tip. You just hope maybe coming back home that they'll get a big performance out of the group. Like they've done some good things, but they've had lulls in games, particularly against Cork. Like I'd love to see them just mix up the play a small bit. I think they're trying too much of this carrying the ball through the lines. I think they've got to strike the ball into the forwards a little bit earlier, a little bit quicker, and just give the likes of Jack Leeman, give some of the good quality forwards we have time on the ball maybe to do their stuff. Like it's going to be a tough ask. It's a good Limerick team, but this is a game they've got to go bullheaded out to win. And look, last year in the championship, Tip's two best performances were at home in Thurles. Like, so just hopefully big Friday night crowd. Hopefully, if we got a win on Sunday, or Friday night, it will maybe build a bit of positivity, momentum into the Clare game on Sunday. So, yeah, huge game for Brendan and the boys on Friday night.
So then, when you're looking at the Tip minors last night, losing by a point to Limerick, and just taking into account the under-20s as well, all the Limerick teams through the age grades, they play the exact same way, don't they?
Yeah. Well, I watched this game online last night. Yeah, that's the one thing I thought from Limerick is it's like watching their senior team very, very comfortable on the ball. You know what they're trying to do. In comparison to Tip, like Tip, we're working the ball out, but then you got to about the half-back line and the ball was not as measured going in. It was sort of drilled in and sometimes little bit aimless. But look, it nearly worked for them. They nearly won the game. It was only, a defensive fumble, 5 minutes to go, and it led to the Limerick goal. Like Tip, it just looked like Tip at that stage had turned the thing in their favour. They'd gone 2 points up, and then the defensive mistake and the brilliant goal by their wing forward, and Limerick got ahead. And fairness to Tip, they came back and they got level and just needed that one more score to go and win the game. Like a draw was no good to Tip last night. They had to go and win it, and look, almost did, but just I suppose that was the difference for me, is that Limerick's system of play, their plan was more visible than while Tip had a style of play, it was I thought it was still more rough around the edges than what Limerick had played, and probably that surety of what Limerick were about was probably the difference on the night. But I suppose if there was a way for Tip to exit the championship, I know they have next Tuesday against Waterford now, but that's a dead rubber game, but that they performed last night. It was their best performance by far in the championship. It's just a pity that it took to the third round. And I do think, especially at underage level, that I don't know how Munster Council are going to change it, but starting with 2 away games for young lads is very, very hard. And then if you lose both or maybe only get 1 point, like you're under so much pressure going into the third game, even if you're going back home. I think they've got to find some way, I think, to shake it up a bit, that no team, especially at maybe under 17 or 20 level, has 2 away games to start. I think that's, whether it's Tip or any other county, I think it's too hard. It's too, you're putting an awful lot of pressure on young players' shoulders. I mean,
So Tipperary this weekend against Kerry, it's poison chalice, really, isn't it? Good to beat Waterford, albeit this is Waterford in disarray, and Tipperary were unconvincing at times. There's a real fear of a massacre here down in Killarney.
Like the Tip team, football teams would have gone down to Kerry before, not really having a chance of winning. But you'd always have to go down, and if they hit a performance, maybe Kerry might have an off day, and you might get out of there with a respectability. Yeah, but that's the worry is for me is that this could be a trimming, and this could be, even though, and we heard Declan Brown say it after the win against Waterford, that they're preparing for the Tailteann Cup. You don't want to be going into the Tailteann Cup demoralised maybe after losing by 15 or 20 points. And I suppose that's the worst case scenario I have. Because like you'd say, the way the level of football has gone at this stage, like the way the really good teams set up, even if they are slightly off it, they can kill you. Like doesn't matter, maybe even if Tip set up a blanket defence, the good teams are so well trained now on how to pick apart the blanket defence. They can still kick 20, 25 points. Like we saw Kerry do that to Limerick in the Munster final last year. Like so, and like Limerick are probably a step ahead of Tip at the moment. So yeah, just be interested to see how Tip set up at the wing, and how can they offer something of a threat against Limerick, like, or against Kerry. Like it's carry something, but it's like they can't just go down there and defend for 70. They've got to carry something going the other way. And I suppose offensively has been a struggle for Tip. Like even against Waterford, they scored only 3-9, and Waterford scored 1-12. So like so still only got 12 scores. Like so, it's carrying a threat going forward when they do have the ball, and what they're going to be. They're not going to have as much of the ball as Kerry. Like so. You just look. I think best case scenario at Tip is come out of there with a respectability and some bit of more confidence to take into the Tailteann Cup. Like I think a heavy defeat would be disaster.
Yeah, I don't see anything other than a heavy defeat here, unfortunately, and that's not trying to be doomsday. But
like it's just been realistic. Like, and it's not that. Like it's not that it's a group. It's the panel of players we have is what we have. Okay, there's guys maybe that are gone away and maybe that are injured that we'd love to have, but it's within the playing group that the spirit within it is good. There's nobody walking away or throwing tantrums. It is what we have is what we have at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And then final topic then, the Tipperary minor camogie team season is over there.
Yeah, disappointing now last weekend. Winner bus game against Waterford. Like I got off to a great start. We were 1-6 to a point up in coming up to half time, but they were completely turned around after the break, lost by 2 points, only scored 1-3 after 1-3 after the getting off to that great start in the first quarter, and that goal came in the last few minutes of injury time when they were pressing for goals. Like so, just disappointing again. Like we know I suppose the same story with Tip camogie, so near and yet so far, and we're seeing the progress the likes of Waterford are making, and like for Tip maybe to do something at senior level, it probably needs to come off the back of a very, very good minor team. And while there's some very, very good players at that minor team, just the group as a whole probably weren't strong enough to go and contend for an All-Ireland. But look, hopefully maybe the likes of Sling Guinan and a few more, that they're probably the shining lights maybe off that minor team will go on and be good players at senior level going forward.
Absolutely. So that's it for this week's show. Let us know if you're not even watching it live and you're watching back later. Leave some comments in. Let us know your thoughts, how the game will go this weekend. Don't forget to pick up a copy of the Nina Guardian. There's plenty of it in there as well.
Shane, it's a lot of games. There's a 15 championship games this weekend, and not even the Joe McDonagh thrown in. Like it'll be. I've said to myself on Sunday night, I'm not going to go near Twitter because they are going to get Sunday game. We're going to get savaged whatever to do this weekend. I know they have the Saturday night show starting, but I thought helped them. Because like there's so many games to cover, they're going to get savaged either way. Like so.
Yeah, they certainly are. Look, I'll see you down in Cusack Park on Sunday.
Yeah.